This stream is sponsored by IGK TAS, telemetry analysis system powered by IGK. Good evening, everyone, and welcome along to TTML. We are here on a Sunday night for F1 action. It is Season 6, Round number 7 of the Championship, as we take in the Canadian Grand Prix from the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. My name is James Hay, going to be taking to the stream, as always, on a Sunday night, and joining me in the commentary box, the second most northern commentary box ever in TTML, it is Mr. Luke Etheridge. Luke, how you doing?
I'm very well, James. Good evening to you. Good evening to everyone that's watching. Hope everyone's had a good Christmas and New Year. I'm going to have to get the map out and try and remember where Funky Chicken is from to try and validate that second most northern commentary box mark. But we are heading quite far north in terms of Formula 1 races today. The Montreal City Street Circuit, of course. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Canadian Grand Prix. Not universally loved by the drivers. Can provide plenty of action, though.
Yeah, definitely so, and I think if it's anything like the races that we've had so far this week, obviously in TTML, there's going to be a lot to really savour, I think, in terms of the action out on track, of course, going into tonight. To remind you of what actually happened before we went, of course, on our Christmas and New Year break, Rudy took the win, Harry Banks in second, Connor finished in third. Tom, who initially won that race, was dropped down to fourth as a result of a stewarding penalty. He dropped 3 positions as a result, I think, of a 5-second penalty, if I can remember off the top of my head. Looking at the standings and what that has done to it, is Jensen out on top on 146.5 points. 61 points is the advantage to Tom Robbo in second on 85.5. Rudy third, just 5 points behind on 80.5. Fleddy in fourth on 72.5, just half a point clear of his teammate Lynx in fifth on 72. Zernema in sixth on 70.5. Connor in seventh on 63.5. Luca, Funky Chicken in eighth on 56. Luca in ninth on 53. And Black Box in 10th on 46 points. Bunty, Boss Wanted, Noah Jones, Harry Banks, and Perpetuum ran off the top 15. Dutch Missile, Basti, Chalkers, Nuth, and Smalley ran off the top 20 drivers. Jensen, of course, leading the way, 61 points, but it's not mathematically possible for him to win the championship tonight because, of course, we've got that sprint race next week.
Yeah, sprint race next week, so an extra 11 points compared to a normal race weekend up for grabs. He's sitting in a pretty comfortable position. He'll be kind of glad, I imagine, even though he did seem to slightly agree with Tom Robbo that it was a harsh penalty. He'll probably be glad that he did get that penalty from a championship point of view because Jensen didn't have a good race last time out in Russia. First time he's finished off the podium all season, and he was down in 7th place. He'll be hoping to recover tonight. Canada, in some ways, it's got that sort of, very close to the... it's sort of like a street circuit without really being a proper street circuit. The wall's very close to you. A lot of 90-degree chicanes here around Canada. Very high speed, though. Traditionally, you won't get this on the game, but traditionally in Formula 1 was always known for brake failures just because of the heavy braking that is required. But because of the short pit lane, it is a circuit where we can see differing strategies. On this game, you can make the one-stop work, but a lot of the drivers will be trying for a two-stop, and that could completely go out the window if we get any safety cars.
Yeah, if we get any safety cars, and of course, if we do get any rain, like we did, of course, in the TTML F2 action that happened, of course, on Thursday evening. In terms of the constructor standings as well, we've got 17 drivers currently within the lobby I can report, but going into the constructor standings, McLaren leading the way on 227 points, Mercedes in second on 144.5 points, Alpine in third on 126.5, Ferrari in fourth on 109.5, Williams in fifth on 99.5. Then it's Aston Martin in 6th on 88, Haas in 7th on 73, Red Bull in 8th on 46, AlphaTauri in 9th on 43, and Alfa Romeo in 10th on 22.5. McLaren obviously have got a massive points advantage, but both McLaren and Mercedes, I think, from my perspective, they've been really consistent. Just Mercedes have had too much lack of pace, really, to try and keep up with the McLaren boys so far.
Yeah, that's, no disrespect to Fleddy and Lynx. They are 4th and 5th in the Drivers' Championship at the moment, but they haven't been able to match Jensen and Rudy. Both teams have had one driver miss a race. Rudy missing in Azerbaijan. Lynx, who could arguably say has looked the faster of the two Mercedes. He missed last time out in Russia, but it's a pretty big gap at this moment in time. 82.5 points. Still plenty more available, so things could change. But with the form that Jensen and Rudy have been, you want to expect that McLaren to drop that lead in the Constructors' Championship. It's pretty close behind them, though. Alpine, again, sort of in there with that consistency. Zoidema and Funky Chicken never really fighting for the win, but they've both picked up a podium each. That's dragged them up to third in the championship. So maybe one to watch out for best of the best at the end of the season.
Yeah, definitely so. And I think, honestly, this track could prove to be the drivers where they are best of the rest in terms of the championship. They might start to come to the fore because of the nature of the Canada circuit. Of course, the circuit Gilles Villeneuve taking in 4.3 kilometres in length, 2.7 mile, 14 turns awaiting the guys out on track. 3 DRS zones, of course, one down the start finish straight in towards Virage Centre, one down in towards turns 8 and 9, the third chicane out on track, and then, of course, one down the technical back straight just before the wall of Champion Chicane. And, of course, on that fateful day in 1994, I think it was Schumacher, Hill, and Villeneuve all going into the wall. And, of course, that is going in terms of the wall of Champion Chicane. But we're about to go, of course, in towards qualifying in Canada. And the first thing to realise, of course, what is the weather going to be like? Is it going to be wet qualifying or is it going to be dry? And I think certainly the curbs around this track, I commentated around here, of course, on Thursday and Friday for TTML F2 and F4 respectively. And what I noticed is the curbs, you ride too much on the curb, you end up spinning the car, and there'll be quite a few drivers, I think, that really get caught out by that.
Yeah, certainly. One corner that, it doesn't really look tricky on paper, but drivers always seem to struggle with, is that turn 8-9 chicane. At the end of the DRS zone, it is quite high speed, very easy to just hit the curb on the inside on turn 8 and invalidate your lap. Invalidate it perhaps at turn 9 and spin around and then just catch the wall. And especially on this game, given the fact that you can damage the rear of the car, that can really cause some problems. Quite often I've seen cars buried in the wall on the left-hand side coming out of turn 9 as well. Probably in league racing, I've seen more crashes there than I have at the Wall of Champions because everyone sort of is aware of the Wall of Champions and knows just to take it a tiny bit easier than they perhaps do at other sections of the track. But we are just about to head into qualifying, and I can let you know it is looking quite overcast at this moment in time.
It is looking quite overcast, and if it's anything like the F4 session, it reminds me a bit like that, where we had, of course, overcast conditions, and then the rain started to fall around halfway through qualifying. So I wonder if we are going to get a little bit of rain within this qualifying session. It will really be the case where, obviously, drivers tend to go out on that sort of soft compound of time. That'll be the biggest indicator, I think, of everyone happening. Jensen looks like he's going to be the first man out on track. He's coming out in the McLaren. I spot a Red Bull set of soft compound tyres there as well, with Jensen coming out of the pit lane. So the championship leader is going to set his stall out first. How would you take this track, Luke, of course? Obviously, Jensen being the championship leader. If you were in his shoes, what would you do on this first lap?
Well, I'd take it a bit steady. I think circuits like this, where the walls are fairly close to you, you've got to not go for it 100% on your first lap. 90-95%. Make sure you get a clean one. Make sure you leave something perhaps in hand for later on once the circuit has rubbered in, because you do not want to be smashing it into the wall, retiming the car and starting right at the back of the grid, especially because it could be quite difficult to overtake in the race, as Harry Banks has pointed out, and as we have found out with the TAS system, we are expecting light rain throughout the race, so expect to see those green walled intermediate tyres being used perhaps for the entirety of the race. It's going to be really important, therefore, to start near the front.
It could be indeed, but it could also be the case where obviously the track changes condition in terms of obviously the rain falling down on track. But we could get a scenario where it starts from dry to wet, back to dry, and then back to wet again. It is possible around this track. I have seen it before here in Canada, and hopefully that might not be the case. Hopefully we do get a very fair race for everyone to happen out on track. Jensen, however, about to start us off on this lap then. We'll take you on board with him, I should say, on the run now down in towards turn 1. Takes actually a wide-out approach coming in through now the left-hander of turn 1 and then through the right-hander of turn 2. We saw a lot of overtaking there, by the way, in the F4 race back on Friday. But Jensen now coming in towards the right-hander of turn 3 and then through the left-hander of turn 4. You could call that Vettel and Hamilton corner. Obviously, with Vettel rejoining the track in front of Hamilton back in 2018. Jensen now through the first sector, 19.1 through the first sector from Jensen. And he now comes through the second chicane of 6 and 7, getting very close to the left-hand side. It looks like he's actually backed off this lap.
Yeah, it does. Just quickly short-shifted there, saving a bit of fuel. It's quite a short circuit, so obviously you do get a chance to do multiple laps if you make a mistake. Connor, is he on a hot lap at the moment? I wonder if he's just backing off as well. No, he's attacking that turn 8 and 9 chicane. So Connor then in the Ferrari, being one of those drivers up towards the front, one of those a bit like Tom, who's got the pace but just not quite had the consistency this season to challenge. He's on a set of medium tyres, very interestingly, which is, given the fact that we are expecting it to be a wet race, very surprised to see anyone going out on a set of the yellow wall Pirelli medium tyres. Of course, 3 types of tyres, soft, mediums and hards, and then the intermediates and the wets as well. But Connor heads into that final chicane, just invalidates. Jensen does go fastest, even though he backed off on that lap. And that invalidation through the final chicane for Connor, of course, that's going to ruin your next lap as well. That's going to be something to watch out for. We see it happen at Austria as well when you come around the final corner. You make a mistake in the final corner, 2 laps ruined.
Yeah, he was looking really good on terms of that lap. Tom goes quickest, 108.8. Zerdeman, though, on a lap. He was fastest in the first sector, and he invalidates now, coming for the left-hand curve as well of the Alpine. So the Alpine will not be improving in 14th position as he currently sets a stall out. Tom out on top, Funky Chicken now in second, Smalley in third. Noah Jones has just started up on a lap. I think Bunty was out on a lap. He set the fastest first sector of everyone. Fleddy looks like he's on a lap, though. 41.1 through the middle sector in terms of his combined first and middle sector. Tom's still out on top, though. Funky Chicken in second, Smalley in third. It looks like this final chicane, the Water Champion chicane, as like we like to call it, of course, really catching people out as Fleddy now comes towards the line. It's not going to be quickest, but he will go second, 109.3 from Fleddy in the Mercedes. And already Mercedes looking a little bit more consistent, you would say, than the McLarens, with Rudy obviously not setting a lap just yet. Yeah,
Jensen on that second lap on a set of soft tyres, so purple in every single sector, 3 tenths faster than Tom. Absolutely fantastic lap time from Jensen. Currently without a team at the moment. Whether he'll follow Tom to Shizou, we'll have to wait and see what happens with all the shenanigans with teams moving around. Harry Banks heads towards the finish line, got a podium last time out in only his second race back in TTML. He sets 7th place at the moment, 1.4 seconds off of Jensen's time. A lot of drivers finding trouble.
Ooh.
I think someone who's had a big moment coming through the final corner is just trying to see if we can get a car that's coming through. It is Bunty.
Yeah, Bunty, I think, has spun where Mike had spun on the right-hand side curve. He just oversteered, basically. Rudy's coming through the section now, and there he is, just off the left-hand side. Rudy on a lap, though. He looks like he could go quickest with this lap. He goes into third, 108.9, a good lap there from Rudy. But Bunty already at the session. He was saying that he was thanking FBR in terms of his setup. I don't think he'll be thanking FBR now.
No, I don't think it will be. Very tricky there for Bunty then out of the session. Perhaps just, again, going for a set of the medium tyres. It looks quite overcast, quite cool conditions, so they perhaps are struggling ever so slightly. Someone who is, of course, using FBR setups, you imagine will be Black Box. It's his first race with a wheel tonight. I wonder if that was a Christmas present, so it'll be interesting to see how he does around here and how quickly he can manage to adapt to a wheel. I imagine if he's not been out, well, it depends how much practice he's had. If he's had quite a bit of practice, I imagine it might actually be quite useful having that dexterity that a wheel gives you over the pad. But Jensen fastest at the moment, Tom in second, Rudy third, Basti up in fourth, and Freddy, Funky Chicken, Smalley, Lynx, Harry and both wanted. 8 drivers failing to set a time, just proving how tricky this circuit can be.
Yeah, Nuth, one of those drivers. I thought he was actually going to set another lap, but he's back into pit lane. So Nuth, of course, LOE Division 2 champion last season in 13th position, still hasn't set a lap time just yet. Connor, though, is one of the ones that I'm going to really focus on, I think, in terms of his lap. He's obviously picked up this lap invalidated, luckily. So Connor now, through the kink of 11, now on the run down in towards turn 12, with around 11 minutes to go in this session. Jensen out on top, Tom in second, Rudy in third. But Connor, you can see him just weaving down the straight, trying to get a temperature into those tyres desperately, and Connor now hates about through the wall of Champions again. Overcorrected himself, actually, nearly cut the corner once again. Could have easily been this next lap invalidated, but now he's on this lap. His out lap was a 108.9, so if that's anything to go by, he should be going around Rudy Basti sort of area through the first couple of corners through turns 1 and 2, and now on board with him in towards turns 3 and 4. Cuts the right hand side beautifully through there. Now to the left hand side, hits the wall on the right hand side there slightly, but 18.8 through the first sector. That is quick from Connor. Hits the curve through 6, and now through the right hand of 7. This is not looking like a half bad lap so far. Jensen still out on top, though. Tom in second, Rudy in third. Connor trying to save as much ground as possible. Noah Jones is retired coming out of turn 2, so he must have lost it through there, just starting up on his lap. But Connor, coming through the end of the middle sector, is looking really, really rapid. 40.3 through the middle sector. He is not purple, actually, in terms of the lap time so far out on track. He is green in both first and middle sectors. However, Tom, who was actually on a lap, who just invalidated on his in the middle sector somewhere. 18.9 it was through the first sector, but Connor still on a very good lap here. The Ferrari now hits the wall of champion chicane through the right-hander of 13, through 14, really committed on this lap. This could be pole position. Connor now running to the line. That's the lap time to beat a 108.3, and now Jensen has got to find something special, I think.
Yeah, great lap there from Connor. So much faster than what anyone else had done through that first sector. And when we're talking, it's only a 19-second sector anyway. To find 3/10 improvement over what anyone else had done, absolutely phenomenal. Of course, Tom had improved. He'd invalidated his lap. It looked like Noah just got it wrong coming out of turn number 2 there. That tricky second right, well, the right-hander coming after the first corner, which is the left, and just perhaps oversteering ever so slightly. A bit keen on the throttle. Very easy to get it wrong. Someone else has spun at that part of the circuit. Can't quite see who it is at the moment. Think it might have been Tom just getting out of the way of a few cars. So he's finding it quite tricky at this moment in time. We're not seeing anyone lighting the timing screens up at the moment. Jensen, he's just about to head onto a lap, coming up towards the first sector point now. Just coming through that Vettel-Hamilton chicane. We'll see where this is relative to Connor. And it's up on his personal best. Still about 2/10 down on what we saw from the Ferrari though.
Yeah, 2/10 down indeed. Jensen on a good lap here, though. Conrad on top, Jensen in second. It's really the middle sector that will decide a lap, I think, for everyone out on the track. We see now Jensen coming through 8 and 9, and then on the run towards the hairpin at turn 10. It was a 40.3 through the middle sector combined, and it's a 40.5, so Jensen is off the pace by 0.2 of a second in terms of Connor's middle sector. We saw an improvement there from, I think, was Zerdam and possibly going 8th. Luca has just gone 3rd. His first race, of course, under the IFR team, formerly of TTG, of course. Jensen, though, on this lap, on the run down and towards the wall of champion chicane. 8 minutes and 20 seconds left to go. Conrad on top, Jensen second, Luca in third as now Jensen hits the wall of champion chicane. Just over-rotates it slightly, just degraded that speed away. I don't think this is going to be an improvement, and it's not. 108.7, lost a lot of time through the final chicane. Conrad on top of Jensen second, Luca in third, and Jensen is finding it a bit tricky because I think Connor knows that this track is probably to his liking.
Yeah, so it's looking really good at the moment then for Connor. Fleddy's just heading towards the finish line now. He's improving in the Mercedes, gets himself up into 6th place. Rudy's gone purple in the middle sector, heads towards the finish line, slots in 14 thousandths of a second behind his teammate. So Rudy doing a pretty good job at this moment in time, and it might be handy for Jensen to have his teammate up there, just helping him out ever so slightly in the championship at the moment. Basti heads towards the finish line. He gets himself up into 5th place. You see, this track's not really to Jensen's liking. There's quite a big gap between, well, really the top 4 drivers. Connor to Luca, over 0.5 of a second. Quite often we've seen top 10, top 11, top 12 separated by that margin. So the McLarens are doing a very good job. It's just that the Ferrari of Connor seems a bit on a league of his own at the moment.
Yeah, he seems a bit too quick, I think, for the McLaren's liking at this stage. But 7 minutes to go on qualifying. Of course, drivers can change their setup in terms of the limitations of Parc Fermé, so they can change a little bit in terms of the wing, in terms of the downforce as well. But Parc Fermé is, of course, on in this session, so that will mean the drivers can't really change their setups and fiddle about with them as they will do, of course, in time trial. Connor, though, out on top, 108.3. If he sets a quicker lap than a 108.3, this will be the quickest qualifying lap that we have seen, as Rudy goes quickest with a 108.2. So now Connor has got something to aim at, 108.3 for him. If he can match Rudy's middle sector, I think Connor will probably get pole position. But will now go on board with his lap.
Yeah, again, Rudy nowhere in the first sector. Really 0.3 of a second slower than Connor, but just gained over the rest of the lap. So Connor's nailed that first sector, maybe perhaps going a bit too deep, I wonder, into the chicane at, well, what corners is it? It'll be 5 and 6 at chicane. Well, 6 and 7, sorry. Oh, and he's just tapped the wall ever so slightly, invalidates, taps the wall. So it won't be on this lap. I wonder if he's picked up any damage on that car as well. Luckily for him, Daniel behind him is on an out lap. It's a short circuit, of course, so you can get multiple laps done, as that's Tom who's retired. I think that's the second victim of the final chicane.
It is indeed. Black Box is just coming through there as well. He's on a lap, and he's actually on the right-hand side this time with the bollards completely and utterly, the polystyrene boards completely and utterly taken out. Black Box to the line, 109.6. He goes into 14th position. His first run on a wheel, and he's around 1.4 seconds off the time of Rudy through, of course, that lap. Connor there in second, Jensen in third. I'm looking at Luca, though, 108.8. He's in there in the Haas, of course, formerly of TTG, now, of course, a part of IFR. He's got Nuff just ahead of him, and then he's got Basti and Tom on the same time behind him. So Luca, I think, possibly could be the best of the race if he gets a very, very good lap in.
Yeah, his first sector, he seems like he's slower than the 3 drivers behind. Well, he's slower than 4 of the 5 drivers behind him, and an identical first sector time to Funky Chicken. So the slowest first sector, himself and Funky Chicken, out of everyone in the top 10 at the moment. So if he gains a bit of time there, could easily get himself ahead of Noob. He's only 1/10 plus a 1,000th off the Williams driver at the moment, but we'll see what Luca can do as he heads towards the finish line. 4 minutes 50 remaining. It is Rudy, Connor, Jensen, your top 3 at the moment. Luca going through turn number 1, perhaps a tiny bit deep through there as he now heads through turn number 2 onto the throttle, coming through that Vettel Hamilton chicane off 3 and 4. You need full commitment on your car through here. I think in the end he's realised perhaps just made a mistake earlier on. Backs off of that lap. Plenty of time to get another one in though. Daniel improving at this moment in time though. He's a quarter of a second up on his personal best through the second sector. Again, finds plenty of time in this final part. He could challenge for the top 5.
Yeah, he found 0.3 of a second actually through that middle sector compared to what it was. He was down in the first sector and actually just completely jukes us and comes straight back into the pit lane. Typical of Daniel there, Dan and P10, 109.1. His current best lap. Luca, of course, back off a lap, 108.8. I think, honestly, he didn't make a mistake coming through turn 1 and 2. Yes, he went a little bit deep, but it was actually coming through turn 3. He went out wide of the curb, and it's off camber, of course, that corner. And we saw it in TTML F2, of course, where obviously one of the other drivers, I think, was coming. Not sure if you've seen a bit of a glitch bother with Boss Wanted coming out the pit lane. Certainly flashing on my screen anyways. Luca, though, looks like he's about to start up on another lap. 108.8. He's got around 0.3 to gain on Jensen. I think if he gets a good first sector in, he could be right up there.
Yeah, certainly. What could cost him, though, is he might end up being one of the first drivers to actually finish his lap time here. He's going out quite a bit earlier than all of the others. We'll see how he does through turns 3 and 4 this time around, taking a lot more over the curb and a much better line through there. We'll see what his time is as he comes through that first sector point, and there is that 10th of a second that he needs to find to get him up around about where Noof is. So if he can nail the rest of this lap, who knows, maybe even challenging the 2 McLarens and the Ferrari of Connor at the moment. Looks very shiny out there on track at the moment. That is just the asphalt. It is not raining yet. It will be, of course, in the race, and we'll find out in just over 3 minutes' time who is going to be on pole position then for round 7 of TTML Season 6 here in the top tier. Luca just coming through to, well, he's past the sector 3 timing point at this moment in time. Is up again on his time, so he's about 0.2 of a second up at the moment. Finds a bit more time in this final sector. Could get himself involved with Jensen. I think Connor and Rudy just going to be a bit too far away for the IFR man. Coming through that final chicane, close as you like to the wall. Now it's all about nailing the throttle towards the finish line for Luca. And in the end, actually lost time in that final sector, 2,000 slower than Noof. And I think that's going to be qualifying over for the Haasman.
It will be. Jensen, though, 210. Toby invalidates coming through the World Champion chicane. He was on an absolute flyer of the lap. He was only 500 off Rudy in that middle sector. Connor is not on the lap either, as Rudy's out on top. Connor in second, Jensen in third. I think Basti is off a lap as well. He's invalidated. Zerdimer further down the field, I think, has just started on one. Links through the first sector as a 10th up. Runs very wide, coming out of turn 7 and clips the left-hand side. And I think he's going to back off this lap. And he probably has, I think, backed off this lap. But it was a slight tap on the wall, and that has really affected his confidence, and he actually just invalidated through the middle sector as well. But it's Rudy out on top, Connor in second, Jensen in third. Connor v Rudy, I think, for pole position.
Yeah, we're not really seeing, again, drivers making mistakes at the moment, not really setting the timing screens alight. I'm just going on board here with Zoidimer as he comes to that sector 2 timing point at this moment in time, and he's down.
Wow.
Again on his personal best. Black box is going improving. Connor has invalidated. So could well be Rudy for pole position here.
Connor's got no front wing. I think he went straight on at turn 1, if I'm not mistaken. So Connor has either lost it coming through the Wall of Champion chicane, preparing up for a lap, or he lost it through turn 1 and he's out of the session completely. So Connor out of the session. Rudy, however, is 2/10 up on his time, coming through the end of the middle sector, and now comes through the hairpin of 11, and then towards the right-hander, of course, the King here down towards turn 12. Rudy is on an absolute stonker of a lap. Jensen is invalidated on his lap as well. Nothing. So now Rudy through the middle, the final corner, absolutely attacks the Wall of Champion chicane, and now it could be a 107 to the line. 108 flat. What a lap by Rudy. He has put on pole position. 3/10, I repeat, 3/10 ahead of Connor. Nobody's even getting close to that lap.
Absolutely fantastic lap from Rudy, and what is it? One of the biggest pole gaps I think we've seen all season. Nearly 6/10 quicker than his teammate on one of the shortest tracks that we are going to see all season. Boss Wanted, he's now heading towards the finish line. We've seen Smaller get up into 6th place. Great job by him. Boss Wanted drifting his way round the final corner. What can the AlphaTauri driver do? Improves himself up into 11th. I think we saw Daniel very quickly donutted his way around there. Harry Banks is improving now. He's about a second up on his personal best, so might be able to challenge for the top 10 here. How high up the order? I'm not so sure. Might get close to Noof and Jensen here if he absolutely nails the final part of this lap. Perhaps just a bit cautious through the final chicane towards the finish line. And that is Harry, who does slot in between Jensen and Noof. Goes into 4th place. I think that might pretty much be everyone on their lap. Daniel was on a lap, did improve in the first sector, but a spin in the second sector, definitely not the way you want to improve. So it is Rudy on pole position. Getting that victory last time out in Russia seems to have given him a bit of a confidence boost.
Yeah, that form really potent, I think, coming in course in towards Canada. Rudy out on top, 0.3 of a second ahead of Connor. Connor is no slagged, and I think if he got a better lap in, and if he didn't lose his front wing, I think he probably would have been up there to try and challenge Rudy for pole position. But ifs, but and maybes, Rudy out on top, Connor second, Jensen in third, and of course with the constructors in mind, McLaren completely outscoring their nearest rivals in terms of the constructors.
Yeah, Mercedes 10th and 15th, Alpine as well, down in 11th and 14th, so not a great qualifying session from them. Red Bull doing okay, but only, I think, Harry, the only full-time driver in for them this time out. He is in 5th. Williams got both their cars into the top 10. Didn't really get to see what Tom could do. Made a mistake on his first run, I feel, and then just crashed on his second, so he's down in 9th place. With it forecast to be raining throughout the entire race, it's going to be very difficult to get back up there.
It will be indeed, but obviously it depends on where this rain is going to be coming in terms of the circuit. I could actually look at the task system. It's 73% of rain expected from the start of this race. So I'm imagining that this race is going to start full wet, and then it is going to be going to the green wall tyre, of course, for a set of inters. Normally around when you get 70% of rain, you're normally on the full wet for the end for the start of the race, as compared to obviously maybe going towards inters. It actually increases in terms of the intensity as we go through the race. But Rudy out on top, Connor in second, Jensen in third. Championship leader is 0.6 off his teammate. Rudy out on top with an absolute stonker of a lap. Connor in second, Jensen in third. Harry Banks in 4th, Nuff in 5th, but only 0.02 of a second ahead of Luca in 6th. Smalley in 7th, Basti in 8th, Tom in 9th. Fleddy ran off the top 10, and there's more than a second nearly covering the top 10 as well. Funky Chicken 11, Boss 1 to 12, Daniel Zerma and Lynx ran off the top 15. Black Box, Noah Jones and Bunty. Both of those drivers, Noah and Bunty, crashed out early on. They didn't get a lap in, so they're starting right at the back of the field. Let me remind you then of what is in store in terms of the on-track action at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. 4.3 kilometres and then 2.7 miles with, of course, the 14 turns, 3D rest zones, and probably quite a lot of rain to be expected as well throughout this race, and maybe quite a lot of overtaking as we come along. We now transition into the lobby, and I'm completely wrong by saying it is going to be full wet. It is not. It is going to be intermediate condition tyres to start us off.
Yeah, looks like it's going to be intermediates all the way through the race, so probably a one-stop strategy is going to be the fastest. Intermediate tyres don't really wear that much, and they don't have to worry about different types of compounds if there's only one type of intermediate tyre and only one type of full wet tyre. But with these conditions likely to stay for the entire race, I think you're going to want to go for the one-stop, and I think you're going to try and work it around safety cars in this race. It's very likely, given the fact that we saw incidents in qualifying when it was dry, I think it's very likely there's a few drivers going to have issues when it's wet, and if you could time your pit stop right with a safety car, that could make the difference. No DRS, of course. It's going to be quite tricky to overtake around here.
It definitely will be, and I think obviously with the added amount of spray, obviously these inters can dispose of around 25 litres of water per second in terms of their tyre life. Of course, full wet would be 75. It really brings into mind, of course, the spray, and obviously if you're charging down in towards turns 1 and 2, you get caught up in a bit of spray, you could go pretty much rear-ending into the back of somebody coming down in towards turns 1 and 2, as Connor has nearly just shown, actually, as he's just run off track there in P2. But let's have a look at everyone's strategies. Of course, everyone on the set of inters, and on my screen, certainly predict the pit stop strategy, lap 17 to 19, 2-stop lap 11 to 19. I think it should be a simple one-stop if it is going to stay full inters.
Yeah, I think exactly. Definitely going to be a full one-stop. You can see there a yellow mark on the Connor's telemetry, suggesting that he's gone extremely low on the fuel. Perhaps expecting there to be a safety car, perhaps at least a VSC. If you do want to find out more about the drivers, you can use !help in the chat, of course. Thanks to the TAS system. Thanks to T-Bold and IGK for providing that. I'm really looking forward to this race. I think it's going to be survival of the fittest. The circuit where the walls are never too far away, plus rain all the way through, plus we've had a bit of the break, so maybe the drivers not been practicing as much as they ordinarily would. Could be really interesting. I think drivers such as Jensen, he's got a comfortable lead in the championship. He just doesn't want to do anything silly here. He just wants to make sure he brings it home, preferably as far up the field as possible. I think if he stayed on the podium, he'd be fairly happy with his night's work.
Yeah, definitely. So I think Jensen, honestly, is probably one of the ones I think that's going to benefit from this race more than anything. These are his conditions around essentially a track he's not entirely good at. Of course, he had Connor and Rudy outperforming in terms of qualifying. Jensen is so much better, though, in the race. And these set of inters, I think, are going to work to an absolute treat. Watch out for Harry Banks as well. Off the same row of the grid, I think he's got a really good chance of possibly winning this race as well. But that is just my predictions, of course. We want to hear from myself and the co-commentator. Luke Etheridge, who's your top three?
I am going to go for Connor, Jensen, and then Rudy.
Interesting, very interesting indeed. The final cars are rejoining on the back of the grid. The Aston Martin, the Ferrari of Noah, and Bunty rejoining at the back of the field. Sit back, relax, and hopefully we might be in store for a 2011 sort of race around here in Canada coming into tonight. But the 5 red lights are going to be going out very soon indeed. We are just loading, I think, into the lobby. Well, I hope we are anyways. Looks like we are now transitioning back into the lobby, and the 5 red lights are about to go out here for the first time in 2022 in TTML F1. It is lights out and away we go, and Connor gets a very good start. Good start as well from Luke, and there's a Williams absolutely flying off the start. That's Basti, I think, going down in towards turn 1 alongside with Tom. But Connor leads the way in towards turn 1 on Rudy, so he's got through down the inside line in towards 1. Gets the job done. It's 3 wide in the background. Nuff forces Tom out wide, and Tom now has to try and react to that as Luke are trying to go down the inside line of Nuth now down in towards turn 3. Really good start by everyone. And after a little bit of contact between them both, and Nuth has gone off, and Luke has now gone past him as well as Basti. So Basti is doing, he's into 8th. Connor leads the way though. Rudy in 2nd, Jensen in 3rd, Harry Banks in 4th, and Nuth has been caught up in more contact coming through the chicane. I think he's actually got a little bit of damage, maybe on the left side end plate. Gets out of the way of everyone, which I think is very fair. But Connor leads the way. Rudy in 2nd, Jensen in 3rd, and of course, with all the carnage happening in behind, the front 3 have pulled away from Harry Banks.
Yeah, just very slight damage then for Nuke, but we've seen what it's like on this game. You only need a tiny bit of damage to it to cause problems. Luke has made a slight mistake, perhaps coming out of that 8 and 9 chicane. He's been passed by Tom Basti, and now Smalley goes down the inside. Very late on the brakes there was Basti, and that's going to allow Smalley to have a chance.
No.
Oh, there's contact between the two. They've just locked wheels. Very unfortunate. And that is Smalley and Basti dropping down towards the back of the field. They are now in 15th and 16th place. Only had 1 lap of the race. We've had so many changes already. There's only 3 cars where they were where they started, and that's Jensen, Harry, and Luca. It's Connor in the lead, Rudy in 2nd, Jensen in 3rd, 2 seconds. These front 3 are ahead of the rest of the pack.
Lynx is coming at Daniel down in towards someone further down the field. This is the 10th and 11th. Lynx down the inside line on Daniel now on the outside. On the traction will be there. Noah, I think, is going to try and cut underneath them both. And Daniel, I think, has just about got the traction on Lynx. But Lynx is now on the outside line in towards turn 3. Daniel still on the inside line, though. Now for 3, now for 4. And Lynx is through. Lovely move that by the Mercedes. And he shows it how it's done. Daniel there in P11. There's a spinner further down the field. I think Basti has spun coming through the chicane of 3 and 4. So Basti now off into the wall. And I think he's got a little bit of damage as well on that right side end plate, looking at the car just there. But Connor leads the way. Rudy in 2nd, Jensen in 3rd. Front 3 have pulled away quite considerably. The position changes. Zerdimer, Lynx, Boss Wanted, and Noah Jones all tied for the most positions gained. 5 positions gained. Nothing Smalley losing the most. 12 and 11 positions lost. As I think Smalley had spun coming out the pit lane, if I'm not mistaken. So he is struggling slightly right down in the back of the field. Of course, he's got on to a set of inters. But Connor leads the way. Rudy in 2nd, Jensen in 3rd. Connor's really not having his own way out in front. Though Rudy, I think, is a lot quicker than actually Connor is down the straight. And I think Jensen has been cut out for that. And Jensen is going to try and follow through. As actually further down the field, I think Zerdimer and Lynx were nearly going side by side into the final corner. But on settling down, Connor leads the way. Rudy 2nd, Jensen in 3rd.
Yeah, it's all like we're settling down at the front of the field. I'm not sure it's settling down any further back. Here we are on board then with Daniel. Smalley gets a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting. He was very quick in qualifying. I wonder if he's just maybe took a risk of qualifying high, getting a bit more of a dry setup, even though the drivers don't really change too much now between dry and wet setups. I wonder if he did take a bit of a risk. Basti back into the pits. That'll be his second stop in this race. Really not an ideal start. Him and Smalley had a fantastic first lap, but ever since they had that contact, it all just seems to have been slowly falling apart for them. Zoidema has got front wing damage, and that is why he's really struggling at the moment. That is why Daniel is all over the back of him, and I think he's going to come flying down the inside into turn number 8. Daniel takes 10th place, and Noah Jones says, you know what, I'm going to try and follow through as well. Zoidema heads over the curb, and that allows his teammate Funky Chicken through as well. Surely we're going to have to see the Alpine driver coming into the pits. He cannot cope with this damage much longer. Smalley is our first retirement of the race. Basti, he's back out on circuit on a set of intermediate tyres.
Yeah, Smalley retired into the pit lane, and now Zerdema is going to let through, I think, Bunty down the straight. Bunty is going side by side. I think Zerdema's, all intents and purposes, gone to the left-hand side of the track. He's got to realise that Bunty is there, and actually, luckily, not like the F4 incident that we saw coming into the pit lane with Ray Meader, I think it was, then in TTML F4, where obviously he went into the back of another driver going into the pit lane. It was Matty Same he went into the back of. Zerdema into the pit lane, now with the front wing change, and that's going to cost him around 25 seconds in terms of a pit stop around here. Connor, though, seems to be putting the foot down now. He's leading the way. Rudy there in second, Jensen in third. And what's keen to me, of course, you said it earlier on, Connor's running a lot lower fuel than what Rudy is at the minute. And I think Rudy has got more straight line speed, but Connor in the corners seems to be absolutely excelling. I mean, if there was DRS enabled, he's already had a DRS range to Rudy.
Yeah, we saw he had that pace in qualifying. He's doing a very good job at the moment. Smalley's left the session then. Battles further back. We've got Tom all over the back of Harry Banksy, who's going to have to go slightly defensive into the hairpin. So Tom's going to try it all the way around the outside. I don't think that's going to work. Maybe he should have tried the switch back there, but he's not able to get that move done and just loses a bit on the traction. You could see a lot of moves into that hairpin now that there is no DRS down this main straight, because that is normally what stop straight was doing it, of course, with the detection point being just before that hairpin. It's probably going to be the best overtaking opportunity now as he completely gets his braking wrong in the dirty air and hops over the chicane, and all that hard work getting onto the back of Harry, gonna have to do it all over again.
He has to, and Tom, of course, absolutely flew off the start, gained back 3 positions just off the start down towards turn 1. So Tom now has to try and battle back. He looks like he's really losing the rear end slightly, and now with 1.1 seconds to try and gain on Harry Banks, no doubt Tom has got the pace. I think Tom, if he puts the foot down on Harry Banks, he'll get him within around 4 or 5 laps, I would say. And if he's really considerate in terms of his fuel as well, I think he could be a real favourite to go in terms of the podium. Rudy now getting under pressure from Jensen. Jensen looks quicker than Rudy at this stage, but Connor now pulling out as a result of 44% of VOS that he's got. He's used a bit of deployment on this lap. Rudy, 1.5 seconds in behind. Connor looks like he's got this in the world of his own at the minute. Further down the field, Funky Chicken on the back of Noah was looking quite close, down towards turn 8 and turn 9, but Noah just gets caught on the curb, and Funky Chicken did. He follows them. Bunty just in behind is going to try and close in on them both, running towards the hairpin, but Connor still leading the way. Rudy second, Jensen in third. Now into the hairpin on board with Bunty. Funky Chicken just looks like he's on the back of Noah, and Noah just seems to me like he's struggling in terms of the traction. Funky Chicken running quite good, but Bunty as well and behind will be there to try and pick up the pieces, of course, if there is a little bit of contact between them both.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, this chicane, we don't really see drivers doing moves anyway, as Tom just proving that pace at the moment. It's not like Harry's struggling with pace, as Noah Jones has gone over the chicane ever so slightly, and that's going to allow Funky Chicken to get through. Bunty not able to close in there, so that's Chicken up into 11th place. We'll see if he can close onto the back of Daniel now. Not able to do so. Daniel has just got away ever so slightly. Going back to my earlier point, Harry's only about a 2/10 slower than those cars ahead of him. The fact that Tom is so much quicker at the moment, the Williams, both of them as Noob sets the fastest lap of the race now, really working well in these conditions. So I think you're right, James. If Tom can clear Harry within 4 or 5 laps, he'd be on the back of the McLarens.
And he's picked up a 3-second penalty as he just cuts the inside curve of turn 9 for the exit of the chicane. Tom, I remember back in the season, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, around Austria. If we had a race around Austria, he was so quick on a set of inters. It was one wet race this season that we had, and Tom was so quick. He was like 10 seconds clear of the rest of the field. That was, of course, before Connor and the likes joined in terms of the lobby. But Tom, absolutely potent in terms of his tyres. Now he's got to try and realise and got to try and catch the back of Harry Banks. Down into chicane, he was looking quite close there. Connor, though, sets a new fastest lap of the race, 118.8. But again, Tom all over the back of Harry, obviously with no DRS in place, not going to get the move done down in towards someone. But you can see the red light flashing in front of Harry Banks in front of him. And that detects, of course, a little bit of low usage in terms of the ERS. Harry Banks doing well, 70% currently in terms of his ERS, Tom on 40%, and Tom just looks like he's taking his time. I think if I was in Tom's shoes, I'd try and get the route done to Harry Banks sooner rather than later, and then use my pace to catch up on the two McLarens.
Yeah, I think he's got to start thinking roundabout now, just like he's doing, taking that bit of a better line through turn number 6 and 7 here. See if you get a bit of a run on Harry. See if you can force the Red Bull to go defensive into 8 and 9. Then you might be able to have a chance into the chicane. He was unable to do that though, so Harry just staying ahead for now. I think that fastest lap from Connor was a reaction to seeing the fastest lap of the race from Tom and thinking, right, I need to build a bit of a gap here. And is Tom going to try and send one down the inside? I think he thought about it.
Wow.
I think it spooked Harry into going wide. Not quite how you imagined he'd make that overtake, but almost seems to have worked. And the two are now having a drag race, no DRS, just pure engine, pure electrical energy as well from the hybrid system. Who's going to have the momentum? And I think Harry just holds on to that position. Great racing between the two. They're costing themselves a lot of time though.
Yeah, I think that was a combination of the side draft, of course, when you go alongside a car, and then obviously the terms of the traction coming out of the hairpin. I think Harry, as a result of that traction, got the move done there, so he's Stooney's into 4th. Tom there in 5th position. Track is not getting as wet as what we might have thought. It's still intermediate conditions at this stage. The rain is beginning to fall. It's maybe slightly a little bit heavier out on track. That might mean we could see a transition to full wet. But look at Tom again on the back of Harry Banks. The Red Bull is so much under pressure from the Williams, and now the Williams tries to dive it down the inside line in towards 6 and 7. Got to be very careful he doesn't pick up a 3-second penalty for doing that, and Harry just has a little bit of a spooky moment coming out of 6 and 7 once again. But Tom on the back will not be able to get the move done. Connor, by the way, still 1.5 seconds leading from Rudy in 2nd. Jensen has dropped off the pace quite considerably in terms of the McLarens. It looks like he's playing for 3rd at this stage, but of course, you never know. The safety cars might start coming out in terms of how the action is going to fall. Harry Banks again, just late on into the brakes of the hairpin, gets the traction out this time around, and Tom actually struggles for a bit of power. He's 5 tenths down. I don't think Tom's going to be getting this move this time around, certainly. Maybe next time around could be the key. Funky Chicken as well on Daniel, P10 and 11 at this stage. Noah and Bunty following in terms of a 4-car train. And Daniel, since he got through on Funky Chicken, he hasn't really tried to back that up, and he doesn't look like he's got the pace to try and pull away. Tom's on the back of Harry Banks, down in towards Sermon, but not close enough.
Yeah, go back into Daniel. That gap just seems to have grown by about half a second every lap. He's now about 5.2 off the back of the two Mercedes. Lynx and Fleddy both moving up from their start position, so not too bad for them, but considering where McLaren are, not ideal for their Constructors' Championship ambitions. It's so tough to pass without any ERS is what we're seeing at the moment, as Luca gets himself a 3-second time penalty. That is now 4 drivers who have a penalty. Oh, contact! Harry went slightly deep there into turn number 6. Contact between himself and Tom. He spun round. Don't think he'll be happy about that. I think Harry just went slightly deep, tried to then cover the move off from Tom, but unfortunately the Williams was a bit further alongside than the Red Bull driver realised.
And I think there might have been a little bit of a desync in that as well. It looked to me the ghosting system just came into play there, so Harry might just be a slight desync from Tom and Harry's perspective there. There's another yellow flag in Sector 2. I think that might have been from Nuff making a slight mistake further down the field. But Harry Banks, drama down into P9. Tom now through into 4th. 4.2 seconds down to Jensen. This is the biggest indicator. Of course, the stewards will have a look into that instant. But now, this is the biggest indicator. Tom, there in 4th. Luca, now in 5th. And Tom has already gained 3 tenths per second on Jensen. In clear air, what can he do?
Yeah, well, we're surely going to see what he can do now. This is his first real lap since the start of the race. We've been able to see what Tom can do in clear air. He made that slight mistake earlier and then banged in a fastest lap all of a sudden. Another driver that is just running slightly low on fuel. He's not quite as low as I don't think Connor was at the start of this race, as we are still getting phantom yellow flags in that middle sector. So I do wonder if there was a bit of desync there that is just causing issues ever so slightly. I've seen it when we've had full course yellows, and that does not provide the best racing action. Before we saw what happened with Tom and Harry, I was about to say, as Connor's gone very deep there into the chicane. He's made a massive mistake coming through turn number 8, and all of a sudden that gap between himself and Rudy has dropped by about a second. about to say, if it's a full wet race, you never really see as much action as if it's changeable conditions. But that slight mistake from Connor has really brought the two McLarens back into play here.
Oh, and Daniel's gone straight on through the chicane as well. Funky Chicken is going to take that position by the scruff of the neck, and he's into P10. And Noah's going to follow through as well, because Daniel had a mistake coming out of the off-road, just to the left-hand side, of course, where you cut through turn 8 and 9 to not pick up a penalty. Noah now through, and he's into P11, but nearly getting shoved around, actually, by Daniel in behind. Is Daniel going to try and recover this? Not quite. Basti, I think, made a mistake in the final sector as well, so he's now retired into the pit lane, and that's the second retirement on this race. I think his race was pretty much run on the first lap of the race, of course, where he made a bit of a mistake. But Connor leads the way, Rudy in second, Jensen in third, and Jensen now, all of a sudden, the gap is 2 seconds, I spotted that, and Jensen actually nearly went into the wall there, coming through 3 and 4, but Jensen 5 tenths off Rudy. We've got a three-way fight for the lead back on.
Yeah, I mean, Jensen has a bit of a wobble there coming out of turn number 7, and his teammate has one in sympathy just ahead. Last lap, Connor, 121.3 with that mistake. A 120.3 for Rudy, 119.9 for Jensen, 119.2 for Tom. These top 4 are in the ideal order for the race at the moment, because it seems the one with the pace is at the back, and he's trying to catch his way up, thankfully. Connor, this could also be interesting, has very slight front wing damage, 8% on his front left, well, on his left end plate, twitching coming out of the hairpin there. That could cost him ever so slightly with tyre wear. With how close things are at the moment, I'm not sure whether he'll think it's worth changing that in the pit stop. But probably, again, he's gone off at the chicane. I think, actually, you might have to change it in the pit stop. That broken front wing is really costing him, and now Rudy and Jensen are all over the back of him. Here comes Rudy trying to go down the inside into turn 1. Not going to be able to make the move work. Jensen's just hanging in the back here, waiting to see what happens between his teammate and the Ferrari. And all this battling, of course, is going to allow Tom to close right up. Rudy nearly loses the car. Here comes Jensen round the outside at turn number 3. He gets that position.
Made a mistake as well, and now look at the gap. Connor's now 1.1 seconds clear, and look where Tom is. Tom's now on the back of the front pack as well. So Jensen, as a result of that mistake, I think Rudy, his attention was going down in towards turn 1. Obviously, if Connor didn't make a mistake, Tom very sideways there out of 7. If Connor didn't make a mistake, I think Jensen would have been let through there by Rudy. He's got the pace now as Jensen compared to Rudy, and Rudy seems to be the one that is struggling ever so slightly. Connor, though, with that front wing damage, I think it was more of a lock-up down into the final chicane where he picked up, and now into the hairpin. He is still getting that lead by around a second. Jensen there in second, but look at the traction that Connor gets compared to Jensen. Jensen is in nowhere inferior compared to Connor at this stage. But Tom, now the one into play, he has now got no more clean air to try and bridge that gap into, because there is literally no clean air out on track for him to go into. Rudy there in third, Tom in fourth, and Tom looks so much quicker through that final chicane on the run down and towards turn 1. Not going to be close enough this time around, but I think he's just going to sit waiting behind and hopefully expect more stakes for the top 3 ahead.
Yeah, I mean, they've not had the cleanest of laps last time around. Connor's made a few mistakes there, just being caught out maybe by the wearing tyres, that slight lack of downforce that he's got on that front left, because they are into the, when the chicane starts turning right. So as soon as you're braking and turning, I think he's just snatching that front left tyre, and it is really causing problems. Jensen, you can see, is caught right up to the back of him, and now Rudy almost acting as a bit of an unintentional rear gunner for his teammate here, because I'm sure Rudy thinks, well, I want to win this race. I ain't playing any team moral at this moment, and Tom must really be ruining that 3-second time penalty. If he gets ahead of these cars, though, with the pace that he's got, I think he could easily gain that 3 seconds, and maybe even an extra 3 seconds if he picks up another penalty, because there's still 22 and a bit laps to go here.
Yeah, he's looking really good, I think, Tom, at this stage. Of course, the Dutchman, of course, formerly TTG, now in the Shazoo team. And Tom doing an absolute fantastic job, I've got to say, in 4th position. Luca there in 5th is not entirely out of this. Bit of no man's land at this stage. But the front 4, if they make mistakes, Luca can really come back into play as well. Daniel was looking close, and Noah Jones further down the field as well. Connor leading the way, though. Again, slight mistake out of the chicane. Jensen there in second, but it's on the initial traction outside of the corner. Connor gets away from Jensen, and that is going to be the key to this race. Jensen now, though, I think his intention is clear. Try and put Connor under a bit of mistake, under a bit of pressure, and Connor will probably crack. This is a track where he has cracked before, Jensen now has got to try and put this to Connor at this stage of the race as Tom picks up another 3-second penalty. So now he's got to gain an extra 3 seconds if he was to get through, of course, on Rudy and Jensen and Connor ahead. He has to gain 6 seconds compared to the 3 that he would have gained, of course, if he only had 1 penalty. Noah, by the way, into the pit lane. I think there was no front wing change there for Noah. He's into the pit on a fresh set of enters. What can he do now? He's probably going to get a significant undercut, you would imagine, on the likes of Daniel, Funky Chicken and Harry Banks.
Yeah, there was a front wing change. Must have got damaged with maybe earlier on. We did see him hop over a chicane, so did get some slight damage. We'll be able to take those tyres towards the end of the race, and they'll stay in decent condition. So we're probably not too far away from a normal undercut territory here. Maybe another lap or two, and we'll see, especially one of these front 4, think about, right, when should I come into the pitch? Jensen and Rudy, they've got to get it right, of course. Double stacking does work on this game, but not now when you're 0.8 of a second behind the car in front. And look at Jensen, much better run through the final chicane here. He's side by side with Connor, both of them using their electrical energy. Who's going to be ahead coming into turn 1? Connor's got the outside line, can just stay ahead. Can Jensen make it work all the way around the outside at turn number 2? And just behind him, Tom gets ahead of Rudy as well. They're still going side by side. Ferrari versus McLaren like the olden days. And it's Connor heading to turn 3. Goes deep though on the brakes. And Jensen says thank you very much. And look at Tom all of a sudden.
Right in the middle of this, he's going to be boxed in, possibly if Connor launches this down the inside line. Jensen leads the way, Connor forces him off track, but now Tom gets the elbows out and nearly forces Connor into the wall. There's a bit of hand of rage there from Tom's driver, and I think that Williams is just going to come out on top. They better not lock wheels down in towards 89. Connor backs out, and Tom as soon as he's into P2. What a roller coaster that was. Jensen leads the way, Tom in second, Connor in third. Do you know how I said don't count Luca out of this? Look where he is. He's only 5/10 off the back of this pack now.
Well, that's the thing, with all the battling that's been going on, I'd love to see the times on this lap, just how much Jensen, Connor, Tom and Rudy lost in all of that, because Luca has been slowly just catching up by a 10th or 2 every lap, but you can make that a second or 2 all of a sudden. He's only got 1 3-second time penalty, and he's not got any more warnings since that, whereas Tom's now had 7 warnings in this race. Oh, Connor sent it down the inside. I'm not sure whether Connor was trying to come into the pits there, but it's contact between the Ferrari and the Williams. That looked very strange indeed, and Tom's left the session. I don't think he was planning to pit then.
He wasn't planning to pit at all. Connor, I think, got his braking point completely wrong. I was on board with Connor, and I wouldn't say it looked intentional to me, but of course the stewards will have a look at it, and I'm sure Tom, still in 5th position, his car has came into the pit lane. He's on a set of inters, and now most of the drivers actually coming in for a set of inters as well. So Tom's AI back out in 5th. If he was to rejoin the session, he is well ahead of Connor, of course. And, of course, Connor is now rejoining a massive train of cars with Boss Wanted links, who have obviously pitted in earlier. Connor now, with front wing damage, he repaired that now. And he's in 9th position. So, Tom, if he was to rejoin the session, he'd be in 5th, but he won't be 5th for much longer because, of course, human cars are quicker than ghost cars.
Yeah, and all of a sudden we've got McLaren 1-2 in all of this. All that chaos that has happened, Jensen and Rudy, things are now looking very good for them, especially Jensen. He's so far clear of his teammate, 2.8 seconds. All I can think is Connor, we've seen him go deep into the chicane before. That was extremely deep, but if he was aiming for the pits, I don't see why you wouldn't be directly behind Tom. It was very strange. We'll have to see if that one does get reported. But yeah, shame for Tom, obviously, that he's left the session. I can't really blame him for that in frustration. He's going to be, I think he was pretty annoyed by the steward's decision last week, and that's probably the icing on the cake. Right, what's happened this time out? Jensen comes into the pits then. He's going to come out round about 3rd place then. That is not bad whatsoever, in plenty of free air. Luca could be pretty close to Boss Wanted, but I think the Haas is going to be ahead of the Alpha Tauri just because of the nature of this pit lane. You can see there Luca's pretty clear, and all of a sudden looking good for a podium.
He is looking good for a podium, but I've got to be honest, Connor now beginning to pick up the pace once again. As long as he doesn't interfere and doesn't pick up any more damage, I think Connor might just have a chance of actually still winning this race. He's in there in 7th. Jensen is so far clear though. He's about 8 seconds, I think, clear of Connor compared to him. But in terms of the championship fight for the constructors as well, McLaren outscoring Mercedes. But One Mercedes is already pitted in Lynx, the other's still the pitted, of course, in Fleddy, so that might just bring now the McLarens back into play in terms of a 1-2, but who knows what's going to happen in this race as we go along. Fleddy's tyres, by the way, 52%. Before Tom actually decided to come into the pit lane, or was basically forced into the pit lane by Connor, his tyres were looking rather shot. 60%, I think they were, on the rear right, as Rudy now comes into the pit lane from the lead of the race, and I would expect him to filter out maybe behind Luca or in between Jensen and Luca. But if Tom obviously is to join back, I don't think he is, because I've just seen his message in the Discord. It's a shame, because I think Tom would have had a really good chance of actually winning this race, as I think Lynx made a mistake coming out the Boss Wanted made a mistake coming out the final corner, and Rudy is going to be ahead and side by side with Luca coming out the pit lane.
Yeah, Luca, of course, that undercut working out well for him, so Rudy drops down a position. That's Luca up into second, Rudy in third. Jensen in the lane in this race with no penalties. You've got to imagine this has all just worked out, perhaps not exactly how he'd have liked, but the result that he'd have liked. Nice and clear. Championship rivals quite a bit further down the field, and he's got no penalties as well. Jensen can just sort of stroke it home now. We'll have a look at the penalty situation. Is 6 seconds for Tom and for Blockbox, 3 seconds for Noah, Fleddy, Boss Wanted, Rudy and Lucas. So a lot of drivers finding it difficult here, and you never know if Lynx puts in a clean performance here and keeps it clean, he could still get a podium, as could Connor. We haven't really spoke much about Boss Wanted. Yes, he's got a penalty, but he's having by far his best race this season.
By far his best race of the season. I think same applies to Luca as well. Luca there in second, now going to come under significant pressure though from the McLaren in behind. And now Rudy, is he going to launch this around the outside? And actually Luca lets him through. And I think that was the smartest decision, because you don't want to go side by side into the chicane. We saw that with Connor and Tom, and then look what happened. Jensen out on top, Rudy there in second, Luca in third. Luca, I think, is now going to try and come back at Rudy down towards someone, but he's not going to be close enough. So Rudy now through into second, and the McLaren 1-2 is currently the way it is. Boss Wanted Lynx, Connor's not really catching Lynx at this stage, just running the curve there slightly, coming through the right-hander. But that instant, I think, would have affected his mentality in terms of this race. Not sure if it was just an absolute dime, not sure if he locked up the brakes. If he gets, of course, in the top 3, we'll interview him. But Connor there in P6, he's now got to prove a point, I think. If he was to try and close in on Lynx, he's really got to try and prove a point. But again, his mentality doesn't seem with it compared to what he was, of course, earlier on in the race. He's 1.5 seconds off Lynx. And to be honest, he's not really putting an impact on that gap. As soon as I say that, though, he closes in by 2/10 as Boss Wanted, and Luca are going to go side by side into the hairpin. Luca stays ahead into P3, but locks up, and Boss Wanted will try and cut underneath. But Luca stays in third.
Yeah, Luca just seems to be struggling all of a sudden. I'm not quite sure why. He hasn't got any damage that we can see on the test system. I'm not sure he's got his test system working properly, unfortunately, but definitely doesn't seem to have as much pace at the start of this stint as he did at the end of last one. As Rudy's completely cut the chicane there, goes slow enough that he should be able to get away without getting any warnings, but that's just going to allow Luca, Boss Wanted and Lynx to close right back up. And I agree with you with Connor, it just got a bit of front wing damage, started making some mistakes, and it all seems to have just compounded himself. He's got the potential to be up there this season. We've seen his pace in this race, in other races. He could easily have been challenging Jensen for the title, just hasn't got the consistency, and that is why Jensen, as things stand, is going to be in a fantastic position to win it next time around with, still 2 rounds remaining after next week at France.
Yeah, definitely so, and I think Jensen has been rather fortunate, I've got to say, in this race, judging by how clean he has been compared to Rudy. Rudy has been clean, don't get me wrong, but Rudy just got involved in too many, I think, incidents and was just at the wrong place at the wrong time, and that's why he's 5.5 seconds off the back of Jensen now after getting caught up in that slight little bit of moment with Connor, obviously, down into the chicane. But Connor, I think, he's just got to refocus now. He's there in P6. He's got the podiums in front of him. He needs to prove himself. He needs to prove the stewards. And more importantly, he needs to prove Tom a point. We know how quick Connor is, but we know how clean Connor is. 1.5 seconds off. Obviously, with that slipstream train that's happening in front, he's not really gaining. But Connor, we know he's got the pace. He just needs to show it now.
Yeah, definitely. We know it, we saw it earlier on in the race. Now he's got a fixed front wing. He did change that in the pit stop. He's just got to try and push as hard as he can. He's 1.5 seconds behind Lynx. He's not far off getting a penalty. Now for his Boss Wanted, both of them only one warning away, so that's maybe something he's got to be careful for. Doesn't have to worry about Nuke behind him. The now sole remaining Williams perhaps in this race, perhaps even in this championship as well, if Tom's message in the Discord is to be relieved. Nuke will be coming into the pits sooner rather than later, maybe just hoping for a safety car, but those intermediates look absolutely shot. He'll be coming in, he'll drop probably towards the back of the field, maybe even behind Black Box as we see Bunty back into the pits again. One man who's not having to worry about all this though, Jensen. 5.8 seconds. It seems once he's got into the rhythm in this race, it just looks again in a different class. It's not... In qualifying, he looked quick. Obviously, he looked quick, but Connor just had that slight bit of an edge of him, and even his teammate had an edge over. But it just seems like so often with Jensen, he just gets into this rhythm in the race and becomes almost unstoppable. We saw this, I think, in Portugal as well, where it was raining towards the end of the race, and he just streaks away, won by about 10 seconds. Fastest lap of the race, 1:18.5. He's extended that gap now over his teammate to 6 seconds. Just don't lose the concentration, and you're getting your 5th win of the season and one hand and 4 other fingers on the championship trophy.
Yeah, definitely so. And I mean, with 14 laps to go out on track, Jensen is now looking in a class of his own. It's one thing to do it on 1 lap pace, but it's another thing to try and take that essential lack of consistency what he showed in qualifying. He was 5 tenths off his teammate, 3 tenths off of Connor, who qualified ahead of him. And Jensen just seems to be that driver that obviously doesn't really show the pace in qualifying on 1 lap pace, but in the race he's so much more consistent. And now look at this, 5.9 seconds. If there's any example you want to try and take of Jensen exactly doing this, it's tonight in Canada, because he's absolutely flown away from Rudy. Rudy himself is doing a good job to try and keep off Luca there in 3rd. Boss wanted keeping up with the pace as well in 4th, but Connor finally, I think, just beginning to show that little bit of glimmer of pace. He slides his way coming through the kink of 11 and now down the kink of 12 and towards the World Champion chicane. But Connor finally just looks like he's beginning to get back into that rhythm. He was significantly quicker a couple of laps ago than Boss wanted and Lynx ahead of him. But now he's got to again show that pace to try and catch back up, and that will just enthusiast him anymore. Lynx has just made a slight mistake coming out the World Champion chicane and he's 1.3 seconds behind him. But nothing really happening at this stage. I send that tentatively because you never know what can happen. Safety car come out at any time here in Canada.
Yeah, I'm gonna, for the 3rd time, I'm gonna attempt to say this, because the other 2 times I've said it, something dramatic has instantly happened. So I'm hoping it works again and we do get some more drama. But I've seen this in TTML, I think, last season when we had a full wet race at Silverstone. Races where the weather stays the same. We always talk about in Formula 1, oh, wet races are more exciting. Kind of sort of aren't. It's the changeable conditions that are more exciting, when you never know what's the best tyres to be on, when's the rain going to come, what do you do with the strategy. Because here, as soon as we saw it was going to be rain all the race, it was pretty clear, barring any safety cars, 1 stop was going to be the best way. And with no DRS and with these Formula 1 cars which produce fantastic levels of downforce, Boss Wanted goes very deep. Oh, contact between Boss Wanted and Lynx, and Boss Wanted's car almost took off there.
And Connor just literally shoved him out the way as well. So Connor's through to 5th, and he's now on the back of Lynx for 4th. Not really sure what happened there, because I was focusing on nothing behind. He is losing now time to the likes of Boss Wanted and the likes of Connor ahead. And now Connor has got Lynx in front of him. There is a moving target in front, and now can the Ferrari get alongside the Mercedes down towards Sermon? No, Connor waits in behind. Lynx there in 4th. The Boss Wanted, I think, got caught on that curb just through the kink of 11, and Connor really fighting with Lynx. He tried to get the up and under through 2, just a little bit of contact between them both, and Connor's now off the back of Lynx, and actually I think he's desynced, and that is certainly not a sight we want to see. Connor definitely desynced, and it seems to me as if the desyncs are occurring through the 1st sector, as this is a little bit funny to watch, to be honest. But Connor's now through, he's into P4 on Lynx, and I don't think Connor can see Lynx at all out on track.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that was maybe the issue then with Boss Wanted and Connor, or maybe even Boss Wanted and Lynx earlier on, whether it was a tiny bit of desync, perhaps even with Connor and Tom. Let's not forget that incident. Maybe that was a bit of a desync reason behind that, and maybe Connor thought he did have a clear line towards the pits when actually he didn't. So hopefully we'll get to hear from Connor at the end of the race. If things finish as they are now, we will get to hear from him, because he is within penalty range of Luca, but he needs to just close that gap up as he can, maybe make it a bit more steady. 2.7 seconds out off the back of the Haas, who seems to have, after struggling a bit in the start of this stint, seems to have steadied things all of a sudden, just keeping about 2 seconds behind Rudy. But again, not a lot seems to be happening, apart from when we had Boss Wanted and Lynx getting close together. It's mistakes from drivers that we're tending to see where the action is happening now. And as for tyres, where as they maybe tyre ever so slightly, we'll have to see what happens.
As there's a yellow flag further down the field, Black Box has spun, coming out of the hairpin of 11, and he nearly hits the wall just on returning to the track. He's luckily ahead of Tom's AI car, so Black Box is there, still in 14th position. Spun, I think, on the exit of the hairpin, and that's what we saw Boss Wanted, I think, do. Obviously, with Lynx going side by side with him, and then Connor just nearly shoving him out the way. Black Box there in 14th now. And is he going to come into the pack lane? No, he's going to continue on, which is good. And obviously, he's going to be there to pick up the points. Bunty there down in 16th. Not has been his race at all. He's obviously had better races this season. But Bunty there in 16th, still trooping on at the back of the field. I'm looking at Nuff and thinking to myself, 23-lap-old Inters. He is not thinking that this race is going to turn dry towards the end of the race, is he?
I doubt it. I just say the rain expected goes up ever so slightly towards the end of the race. I think he's just, he knows if he pits down, he's dropping a long way down the field. So he's just sort of thinking, right, if I keep going, I'll get a puncture. I'm going to finish nearly last. If I keep going and there's no safety car, I'm going to have to come in at some point. I'm going to finish nearly last. If I wait for a safety car and I do get one, could see everyone coming into the pits. It's a short pit lane here. I've maybe got myself a chance in this race because I've kept it clean and I haven't got any penalties. So Nuve, he's not got the pace of those ahead of him, but it's not like he's massively struggling at the moment. I mean, if you get his last lap up for Nuve was a 119.6. It was only a 119.5 for Jensen, who seems to be relaxing a bit at the front. But Nuve was actually 2 tenths faster than Fleddy on that last lap. I don't see these intermediate tyres lasting towards the end, but he's giving it a good go.
He's already been into the pit lane, though, which could work in his favour, because obviously he'll have obviously more worn tyres than compared to the likes of Jensen and Rudy. But I'm watching his driving style, and he's only losing 2-3% in terms of the tyres every single lap. There is a chance he could get to the end of the race. Of course, we've seen drivers do 93%. I think Bullet Boy back in TTML in Spain did 93% on a set of dry compounded tyres. And luckily for him, he got to the end of the race, and then somebody else, I think, got 70% and punctured in exactly the same race, which is very, very strange. And that just comes to show, obviously, the F1 game and how it works. Jensen leads the way, Rudy in second, Luca in third. We've got 9 laps to go. Jensen has just got on to lap 27, leading the way. Rudy there in second, Luca in third. Lynx, though, he looks now on the pace of Connor. Might be because he's using up a lot of ERS compared to Connor. And of course, in these inters, you're going to be saving up more ERS than you are going to be using it. And Connor there in fourth just has to watch him behind. He is trying to catch Luca in the meantime as well. As Harry Banks now sets the new fastest lap of the race as well. But Lynx there in fifth. Connor makes one mistake. Lynx is on the top, is right on the top of him.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, they're both catching up to Luca at the moment. Oh, now, as things stand, Lynx would actually manage to finish ahead of Luca. So there's a chance for a podium here for the Mercedes driver. He's had some earlier on in the season, I do believe. Let's just check ever so slightly. Yeah, third in Hungary, third in Holland, and they were the last 2 races he did. So maybe he can match it up with a trio of third positions here at the Canadian Grand Prix. Just stays about a second behind. He's got slightly less ERS at the moment. There's a lot of high acceleration zones here, a lot of heavy braking zones as well to allow you to save a bit. So you might find it hard once he gets behind Connor. Could probably do with the Haas and the Ferrari battling once the Ferrari does get onto the back of Luca. But then again, if Connor does get onto the back of Luca, will he actually bother going for the move? Maybe he might, if he thinks he's got a chance of beating Rudy after the penalties.
Well, Rudy is 3 seconds clear of Luca now. Out on track as Connor's gone for a spin. Into the wall. Hits the wall of champions on the left-hand side. Not on the right-hand side. And makes a significant error. And I wonder if there's any front wing damage on that car. I'm looking desperately. I can't see any. There's certainly not any side pod damage, which I thought would be. And Connor has got away quite literally there in this race. He hit the wall on the left-hand side. And Lynx now, I did say, one mistake could bring Lynx right on the top of him. There you go. Lynx is on the top of him. Connor there in fourth, 2.6 seconds off the back of Luca. And all of a sudden, Connor doesn't look like he's on for the podium.
Yeah, just shows you how quickly things can go wrong. How he's got away without any damage there, I do not know. That was quite a sizable hit on the wall. I think on sim damage, you'd have had a front wheel missing, never mind part of your front wing. But he's got away absolutely scot-free at the moment. Just see how that ruined his momentum ever so slightly. Lynx wasn't close enough to take advantage, but that probably means Rudy's going to be safe in this race from Connor. Luca still needs to get away a tiny bit more as Connor, bit deep, coming out with a hairpin, but that gives him a better run on the exit. Lynx is going to try to close in here, but hasn't got the ERS to do so, and having to move into that final chicane is incredibly brave indeed. And of course, if these make contact, could see Boss Wanted maybe getting involved as Luca picks up another penalty. I think that's any chance he's got of getting a podium out the window.
Yeah, definitely so. Lynx though on the back of Connor. As long as he keeps within the slipstream down the straight of Connor, I think he's got the quicker car to try and close in on the back of Connor. But this is still Formula 1, of course. Connor again a bit sideways coming out of turn number 1 and 2. And he's 2.9 seconds off. That seems to me there is some sort of damage on that car. He's 2.8 seconds now behind. And Lynx all of a sudden begins to struggle in terms of his tyres. So Connor there in 4th. I think there might be left side pod damage. He's losing time to Luca. Luca now beginning to pick up the pace and is pulling away, obviously, and was helped there by Tom's AI car as well as he's now been lapped. Luca there in 3rd, pulling away from Connor. It's either the ERS that Luca is using up or Connor has got side pod damage, which obviously it's not showing on the task system. But it seems to me there might be something. There's got to be, surely, how hard he hit the ball.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Lucas just been drifting out the hairpin, though. You can see now Connor all of a sudden is back within 2.5 seconds as Noah Jones has overtaken Daniel. That is for 11th and 12th place. Everyone who finishes here will get some points, and Daniel without any penalties looks as though he will actually jump ahead of Noah Jones. Jensen, fastest lap of the race again. 7.4 seconds now he leads with 6 laps to go. Pretty much almost a combination this race. Absolutely brilliant performance. Just kept it clean. So many others around him, maybe in contentious issues, haven't been able to do so. And that gap's stretched up again all of a sudden. Connor now 3 seconds back behind Luca. He's really finding it difficult. I agree. Would not surprise me if he has got a tiny bit of front wing damage. Or is he having to short shift to just save a bit of fuel? He's really through some of these corners shifted up at about 10,000 RPM there. So I think he's just trying to save whatever bits of fuel he can. I'm going to check on the test system just how low he is on fuel at the moment. He's saved about 2/3 of a lap from the start of the race, but he's still 0.33 down. He's only got 5 and a bit laps to go. He's finding this tricky on fuel, I think, more than anything, as is Lynx.
Yeah, Lynx is actually significantly worse off, I think, compared to Connor by about 2/3, I would say, in terms of that. So Lynx, it says minus 0.56 going through the hairpin, 0.32 it was for Connor. So that is really the key. And Lynx now all of a sudden is getting caught by Boss Wanted. Boss Wanted with 30% of ERS, beginning now to try and hunt down the IFR Academy driver. And Boss Wanted is not entirely out of this race either. He could still have some sort of impact in this race. Nuff, by the way, I think there's only one option for him now to try and go to the end of the race. He's doing a stunning job to keep Fleddy at bay at the minute. Still 1.9 seconds, the gap. And Nuff there in P7. 29 laps he's done on that set of inters. And I'm looking at his tyres and thinking to myself, they're probably going to puncture. 72% on the right left, 67% on the front left, and it's the left tyres that really take the hit around here. As Nuff, P7, doing a sterling job, I've got to say. Can he get to the end though?
Yeah, I really hope he does, because it'd be an absolutely fantastic job. So unlucky at the start of the race to just get involved in some contact. You can see how much Connor and Lynx are struggling. It's now 4 seconds, the gap between Luca and Connor. And Lynx has dropped 2 seconds back. He's just going to have to be so delicate on the throttle through every single corner. Short shifting, surely, but in the wheel spin, in the wet conditions, I know traditionally you're supposed to use less fuel in the wet as you're not accelerating as hard, but what can happen, of course, is you start wheel spinning, the engine goes crazy, you're putting more fuel in all of a sudden. Oh look, you've used a lot more petrol than you expected. So that's where Lynx is having the trouble at the moment. I think Boss Wanted might have a great chance here, but Lynx has got to start thinking, right, how much do I need to save? Because there's no point finishing up in 5th place if you're running out of fuel at the checkered flag.
Well, Connor's running lean fuel mixture, running out of the hairpin there. Now down the straight, he up to, I think, into standard. But now, Boss Wanted going side by side with Lynx, down and towards someone. Boss Wanted saunters past Lynx, and Lynx is the one that's struggling, obviously, with fuel as well. So Boss Wanted is still on, possibly for 4th position, if obviously Connor was to fall by the wayside in terms of his fuel. First sector, he seems to be better, but we noticed certainly I noticed last lap around, he short shifted, he lifted and coasted into the hairpin. And this is a sign, really, of Connor really beginning to fall by the wayside. I would not be surprised if that gap is 6 seconds by the end of the race.
He seems to have saved quite a lot on this lap. I think, maybe quite sensibly, I think a lot of us would have predicted a safety car in this race. So he put a bit less fuel in, I think 1 lap less than what is recommended, and he's just not really had a chance to save it with all that battling he was doing at the start, and now he's starting to pay the price for that. He might still get a podium here, as long as he doesn't have to start defending, and he could maybe afford to let Boss Wanted go just a tiny bit as Black Box comes into the pits. I wonder if we're going to see a last-ditch attempt at that bonus fastest lap point here, but this is playing into Lucas, and Boss Wanted's hands absolutely perfectly. Noof's tyres are still going. It's Lynx who's really in trouble at the moment. He's going to crawl to the checkered flag, I think.
Is Nuff possibly on for top 5 as well? I know he's got a penalty, but still, he's really beginning to feel the effects of those tyres. Fleddy in behind, now a second away, and Fleddy all of a sudden seems to be the one coming into this. Nuff, 76% on those tyres. Everyone else is running out of fuel ahead apart from Boss Wanted. Connor there in 4th is 4.3 seconds behind Luca. This race is not done with yet in terms of the drama. We've got 2.5 laps to go. Jensen leads the way, Rudy in 2nd, Luca in 3rd. You can possibly put Jensen and Rudy as the front 2. Who knows who's going to finish in 3rd?
Yeah, who knows at this moment in time. We're looking at Fleddy at the moment. Abdul in the chat just mentioned it here. Noof's driving like Ocon in 2021 Turkey. Yep. And we know how good Ocon's tyres were at the end of that race. He lost about 5 or 6 seconds a lap. He was really struggling. But yeah, doing an okay job at the moment. It's Noof on getting them to last. But as soon as you're above 75%, you are in the lap of the Formula 1 and Codemasters gods as to whether your tyres are going to get to the end. And that's 78 on the rear left, especially if you get a rear puncture. A front puncture, you can sort of try and drive around a tiny bit. A rear puncture, 900 brake horsepower through a flat tyre, does not end very well, as Jensen sets the fastest lap of the race and gets himself a time penalty in doing so. As long as he doesn't do anything too silly at the moment, he should be claiming another victory, his 5th of the season, 7.5 seconds clear. Just an absolutely fantastic job. Connor now, 5.2 seconds behind Luca with 2 laps to go. And he can't really push through the corners because he's only 1 warning away from a penalty as well. It's going to be so close as to whether he actually gets on the podium, but I think he should be safe at least from Boss Wanted behind, unless he runs out, of course.
I think Connor loses about 4/10 in the middle sector, and that as well, obviously you're going to be saving up more fuel than what you are around the rest of the track, and Connor doing a good job. He's 5 seconds back off Luca, but now he's got to put in a bit of pace, I think, to just try and up this somehow, to try and get to the end of the race. He's 5 seconds off, and I said last lap around, I wouldn't be surprised if the gap is 6 seconds. Look at how slow he is coming through the chicane as well. His tyres are beginning to go off the cliff. Looking further down the field as well, I think we're going to have a whole hell battle break loose here. Funky Chicken's on the back of Fleddy, and Funky Chicken right on the back of Fleddy, down into the hairpin. I think he's going to launch this now, down the inside line. The Northerner down the inside line. Can he get the job done? He will, because Fleddy's now in behind, coming through the hairpin as Funky Chicken is through. He's into 8th position, and with Nuff running out of tyres, Lynx running out of fuel, Connor running out of fuel, Funky Chicken's got a chance of a possible top 5 finish here.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible indeed. I mean, Boss Wanted, he's not too far behind either after the penalties. He's only about a second behind him, so final lap of the race. Who knows, Funky Chicken could even be 4th place if everything goes absolutely fine for him. But Jensen's just coming through into the middle sector now. 8.4 seconds clear. He's having a brilliant time. He's lapped Tom's AI car. He's lapped Black Box. Fair play to Black Box. Carried on going. I think obviously that first race with a wheel was always going to be difficult, and he's done the best thing of just carrying on in race conditions, trying to see what he can do. Daniel earned himself a 3-second time penalty. He's sort of on his own at the moment, so that wouldn't make an effect anyway. We'll try and see what's happening further back. Noof's tyres are lasting, and Lynx's fuel seems to be lasting for now. Whether it's like that at the final chicane, I'm not sure.
Connor's on the brink of running out of fuel as well. He's in 4th, but he has up the pace. Jensen, though, on the run down towards the wall of Champion Chicane for the final time. As long as he doesn't hit the wall and crashes out the race, he's going to win. Jensen around the final corner. It's been second half of the race quite dominant. First half, maybe not. Jensen to the line, wins in Canada. and Rudy is going to come across the line for an unlikely second position indeed. Connor, is he going to run out of fuel on the run to the line? Coming through the final chicane? No, he hasn't. I think Connor is going to get onto this podium position. He runs out of fuel now to the line, and the gap is 5 seconds, and Connor's done enough to finish in third. Luca there in fourth. Boss Wanted, a great drive from him in fifth. And now Funky Chicken closing all on the back of Nuff. He gets into sixth in the end. Nuff there, seventh. Boss Wanted with penalty down to ninth. Fleddy gains a position as a result. Harry Bangs kept it himself there in 10th. Noah, Daniel, Zerdimer, Bunty, and Blackbox we wait on to finish. Blackbox, I think, has already finished. There's Noah to the line. Finished in 11th, and Niddy did a Bus in Hamilton, sort of 2011 sort of weave there. But Daniel there in 12th, Zerdimer 13th, Bunty in 14th. Canadian Grand Prix over and done with. I cannot understand how Nuff has got to the end of this race on 83% tyres. Daniel, by the way, has got no front wing at all, and he's going to finish in 12th.
Yeah, Daniel gets 12th with no front wing. I'm just on board with Nuff. If you look at the car ahead of him, if you look at links, you can see a tiny bit of tread left on the tyres. You can see a bit more on Funky Chicken. Nuff's are pretty much completely bald. He's pretty much been on into slicks here in wet conditions. I've got to say, I know Jensen's had a fantastic job, but I'm going to give driver of the day for Nuff just for the pace he's been able to show with how hard he's pushed those tyres. 34 out of 35 laps. Who knows? Maybe if he hadn't have had damage on the first lap, he might have even tried a one-stop. Well, a no-stop.
Well, Lynx gets awarded driver of the day. There's heavy breathing, by the way, coming through. That's Rudy, I think, maybe wanted an invite into the party. But that is the end for the Canadian Grand Prix, and it's Jensen out on top, a 5th win of the season. Rudy in second. It's a McLaren 1-2 in the end. Ferrari in third, of course, with Connor. Whether or not Connor remains there, though, remains to be seen after that contact, of course, with Tom running down in toward the World Champion chicane around about halfway through the race. But Jensen out on top, Rudy in second, Connor in third. And we'll run you through the full grid order in just a second when it comes up on my screen. And it is Jensen out on top from Rudy in second. Third position for Jensen in qualifying, but that race absolutely suited him down to a T, and he was the king of the intermediates, 118 flat, picking up the win. Rudy in second, Connor in third. The top three shuffle about in terms of the positions. Nearly well done, Luke Etheridge. Nearly got your prediction right. Luca in fourth, Lynx in fifth, Funky Chicken in sixth, Nuth in seventh. Drove a fantastic race in seventh. Floody in eighth, Boss Wanted in nine. Harry Banks round off the top 10. And it's Noah, Daniel, Zerdimer, Bunty, and Blackbox. They all finished under their own accord. Shazoo Tom's car, I think he's left the league, so unfortunately for him, he's down there in 16th, so that might have been his final race. Basti and Smalley, of course, DNFing both retired, though, in the pit lane, which was good to see, and obviously no safety cars. But it is Jensen's 5th victory of the season. It's also Jensen's 5th podium of the season as well. Rudy 2nd podium and Connor's 3rd. Shall we try and get the top 3 in?
Yeah, I think they'll all have a lot to say. It was a very, first stint, as you said, James, everything happened. The second one, once Jensen got away, things just sort of calmed down, but obviously further back, so much action at the end with Connor fuel saving, Lynx extreme fuel saving, and extreme tyre saving from Nuth as well. But we are dragging some of the top drivers in now.
We are indeed, and the first man that is in the commentary box along with us is our race winner. Of course, it is Jensen, a 5th win of the season. Jensen, it wasn't your own way at all in the first half of the race. Second half, it was more like the dominant self that you normally show here in TTML F1. Talk us through it from your perspective, because it was a quite eventful race.
Yeah, cheers. Qualifying at the end didn't go my plan, but I'm happy that I managed to keep third out of the first run. So it wasn't too bad at all, really. Considering if I got a good lap, I would have only gained 1 place, because Rudy's lap was absolutely insane. Like, that would be top of PSGO F1 pole position or something. So yeah, that was insane from him. But yeah, in the race, it was pretty difficult at first to keep up with my teammate and Connor. I think they had to outpace me at the start, but yeah, I found the rhythm in the end. Just carried on pushing my absolute earnest, and yeah, when I jumped at their mistakes, and yeah, tried playing some smart moves, but yeah, managed to get through both my teammate and Connor. Not too far apart, but yeah, in the end, it's unfortunate what happened to Connor and Tom. I don't know what happened between them two, but in the end, yeah, the last 20 laps were insane. Absolutely, like, qualifying pace every single lap. And yeah, of course, the fastest lap in the end. Pretty happy to take that as well as the win.
Yeah, obviously your fifth win of the season as well, and you picked up a 3-second penalty in doing that as well. Only a first 3-second time penalty of the race, but it was still a really dominant race from your perspective. At any point in that race, did you expect the safety car to come out?
I was expecting it about lap 32. I was telling myself to not push until after lap 32, to make sure like I could securely go for fastest lap. And in the end, yeah, I picked up my first warning on lap 24, so it was quite a clean race. But yeah, the last 3 laps, I think I picked up like 2 or 3 warnings, and you see the penalty as well. But I was pushing for fastest lap in the end, so it was all. I played it all very well. I had the gap to do and the energy, but yeah.
Yeah, the plan certainly, I think, from you going into the race probably didn't work out 100% in terms of what happened out on track, but it was still a phenomenal drive, especially in the second half of the race from you, Jensen. Luke, any questions?
No questions from me.
No questions from you. So that means, final question from me, French Grand Prix next week. You, I think, drove very well, if I'm not mistaken, FRL back around here. Sprint race and feature race to come, of course, next week. How do you think you're going to get on?
Aim is to win the championship, because I think I've got about I think it's like a 72-point gap now to Rudy. So yeah, always to play for. I need to, I think, if I'm 62 points ahead, as we leave France, I think that wraps it up. So make sure I don't get outscored by 10 in that. But yeah, I'm just gonna drive like I've always had this season, and yeah, try and make the most out of the sprint and feature next week.
Yeah, definitely so, and hopefully we might be seeing you once again on the top step of the podium. Maybe we can say those infamous words, you are the TTML F1 champion next week. Who knows, though? Go and enjoy your evening, Jensen.
Yeah, thank you, and cheers for comms, as always.
Absolutely welcome indeed. And now we'll move on to our man in P2, who is not here at this stage. It is Rudy. He's in the waiting room. Hopefully we'll be able to join in just a second. I'm not sure if he was having a few disconnection issues. I'm just trying to play this out, waiting for him to come in, and hopefully he will join. However, I think he's probably not going to join, which is
I
a shame.
It's probably best. We'll give Connor an interview next.
Yeah, we'll move on then to Connor, obviously finishing in P3. And Connor, we have to talk about that incident with Tom. Was it just a pure lock-up from your perspective?
Yeah, and the wing damage I had as well. He braked a bit earlier than I was expecting. And I was either going to drive into the back of him, or I tried to go around him to avoid him. But that was sort of at the point he turned in as well. So it's sort of, I either do what I done or hit him straight up the arse. And I just tried to avoid the crash, but it was always going to happen when I broke a bit late. But if I get a penalty with that, I don't know, but I kind of deserve one.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I rode on board with your perspective, and immediately I thought it was a brake check down the inside line. And obviously, you broke yourself a couple of times, I think, before that move as well. So I think, honestly, it might be justified, but obviously the stewards will have a look into it. Talk us through your race from your perspective, though, because it was quite a good battle, I've got to say, between you, the McLarens, and obviously Lynx, I think, was involved in that as well.
Yeah,
Tom, sorry.
First 8 laps or something were all good, but the timing started glitching, and I thought I'd disconnected. So I was looking at that and not paying attention. I drove into the wall just under the bridge and got wing damage. So I was just trying to survive until the pit stops. But once I got overtaken, knew I had to pit and fix the wing, try and recover a little bit, but I'm never going to make up a wing change. So a little bit disappointing, but I'll take a podium.
Yeah, I mean, P3, I think, from your perspective, was probably the result that you probably would have wanted in the end. Talk us as well with the fuel situation. That fuel, you must have been expecting the safety car in that race, surely.
Well, I did think there was going to be one, but I thought the fuel would save a lot more than it did. So the whole second stint, I was just fuel saving. Still ran out of fuel before the line, so not good. I think I was on like minus 0.8 with like 10 laps to go. Yeah, I don't know. Don't know what I was thinking there, but might have underfueled a little bit.
Yeah, certainly we saw from the task perspective, you were, I think it was about 10 laps from the end of the race, and you were 0.3, and Lynx behind you was 0.5 underfueled. So you did a phenomenal job, I've got to say, even though I think the situation with the fuel got worse than actually it got better.
Yeah.
But Luke, I'm going to come across to you. Any questions?
No questions from me.
No questions from you. Final question from me then. Of course, French Grand Prix, sprint race and feature race to come next week. How do you think you're going to get on?
Once again, it's another track I've got to learn with no line. So pace is decent with line, so hopefully it can be close to that without line, but I guess I have to do a bit of practice to find out.
Well, you never know. Hopefully, you might be able to show the pace like you showed, of course, in qualifying, apart from Rudy just absolutely qualifying you by about 0.3 of a second.
Yeah.
But go and enjoy your evening, Connor.
All right, cheers. See ya.
Indeed, hopefully, we might be able to get Rudy in. I think Luke has just gone to see if Rudy is joining. If not, we will probably end off the stream here. Jensen has left as well, so we just wait in. As?
Definitely heard a voice then.
I think I heard a voice as well. That's why. Oh, Rudy's here. Rudy's here. I've just realised we've gone into the waiting room. Rudy is here, though, finishing, of course, in P2. And really, from your perspective, qualifying, absolutely unbelievable lap. 108 flat was the quickest we've seen all week in terms of the lap times. Talk us through what happened, though, in the race, because you got involved in that battle with Jensen and Tom and Connor and the likes.
Yeah, first of all, that qualifying lap, I think that's probably my best lap ever. I was absolutely on it, was 2 tenths up into the final chicane, and I nailed it on the lap before, so I didn't think I was gonna be able to improve, because it's so hard to get it right, and I nailed it, and I don't know how I got that lap out, but yeah, and then at the start, I lost 1 position, but I lost a bit of time at the first 5 laps, I think. But then I saw Connor was making quite a lot of mistakes, and I was able to close back in. And then he made a mistake into the final chicane. Then rejoined the track, and I had to go off the throttle, and then Jensen got past me. So that really ruined my race a bit in terms of chance of winning. And then the next lap, that bizarre incident happened with Tom and Connor. So. Yeah, that helped me a bit because I also got a penalty, but that didn't matter in the end, luckily, because I got saved a bit by that incident.
Yeah, and obviously, Rudy, I think it's the first one too in the McLarens this season as well within TTML, certainly in this year, I should say, in TTML. But obviously, first and second for McLaren. In terms of the constructors' battle as well, you've outscored completely Mercedes and Alpine, your 2 closest rivals. How do you feel as a team going on in towards next week, of course, in France, where you could, as well as Jensen wrapping up the drivers, you could wrap up the constructors as well?
I think so far our season has been pretty good, especially Jensen's with his win streak at the start of the season. I was a bit unlucky at some races, also missed 1 race. But last few races have been going, really, really, really well, with the win last week as well. So we've been on it this season as teammates, and he's quite hard to match. But I think we should be able to wrap it up. I don't know how many points we need to wrap it up, but I think it should be quite. Don't want to sound cocky, but I think it's going to be quite easy to wrap up the constructors, especially with Jensen. Like, he's on it every time. He's so hard to beat. So, really lucky with him as teammate.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see, I think, and it's fantastic to see both the consistency in yourself in terms of your performance so far this season and in Jensen's performance so far this season as well. Luke, I'm going to come across to you. Any questions?
No questions from me, James.
No questions from you. So that will bring me on to the final question that I'm going to ask. Of course, sprint race and feature race to come next week in France. How do you think you're going to get on?
I think it should be quite a good race for me. Last sprint race didn't go well, but I ended up on the podium. And France has always been one of my best tracks in the game. So, yeah, it should be good.
Well, you never know what is going to happen, of course, next week in France. But go and enjoy your evening, Rudy.
Yeah, cheers.
Very welcome indeed. And that marks the end of tonight's TTML F1 live stream. We really hope you have enjoyed it. Of course, if you have, like, comment, subscribe, tick that notification bell, of course, if you are new. Luke, I'm going to give the floor to you. Your final thoughts and overall driver of the day.
I mean, it was like an absolutely fantastic race. Really a race of two halves. You had the first stint, we had no clue who was going to win. Then we had that incident, obviously, with Connor and Tom, which I think we'll be talking about for quite a long time. Jensen just seemed to pull away from that absolutely fantastic race. I'm going to go for Noof. He did a brilliant job going 34 laps on that one set of tyres and had decent pace at the end compared to all the others as well. I think he could have been up there if it wasn't for the incident. So just for that resilience and carrying on, he's going to get my driver of the day.
Yeah, driver of the day indeed. And I think Noof honestly deserves driver of the day from my perspective as well. Finishing there in P7 in the end, drove a fantastic race. Managed to get 32 lap old inters towards the end of the race. If I try to get 32 lap old inters to the end of the race, I'd probably end up back in the commentary box than rather out on track, which I think probably my best place to be. But that marks the end of tonight, of course. Just one thing before we leave the stream as well. Sign-ups within, I think internally within the league are open for Season 7 of TTML. So if you haven't already, you can sign up for TTML next season. Hopefully, we might be getting another 5 tiers on the ropes as well. But that marks the end for tonight's TTML live stream. As I say, if you enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe, tick that notification bell, of course, if you are new. The next time that there's action live on the track here from our perspective, from the TTML and EML perspective, is on Wednesday night for the EML Qualifying Cup Grand Finale 3. One-shot qualifying and 25% races. Myself and Luke will be taking you through the action once again for Wednesday night, and that starts at 7:30 around Britain, Austria, and Bahrain. So hopefully you can tune in for that. But I think for the first time in 2022, I've been James Head.
I've been Luke Etheridge.
Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.